Check, check. Check, check. Check, check. Check, check. Okay. I don't know what happened, friends. My stream got interrupted. I don't know how long that other one lasted. So do I want to check it? No. I'm just going to, I will post that whole thing if it didn't go up. But basically, I just called Cheryl Chapman earlier today, recorded it. I'm just putting out the context of, I'm putting out the recording of the call because I'm trying to encourage you all to call the village of Endicott. Call these numbers right here. Mayor Linda Jackson, 607-757-2420. Cheryl Chapman, 607-757-5367. Eileen Konechny, 607-748-2272. Ted Warner, 607-727-2503. And Pat Dorner, 607-754-4236. Tell them you have very serious concerns about public health concerns and environmental concerns about 5G. And you believe that this master license agreement that's being presented by Verizon wrote it in their interests. Verizon, it's one thing of just, trying to do business in the village on fair terms. But when you come in and you're using fraud and deception, that's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to find the video of... Just going to take me a second to... Oh, do I have it here? I can call it up here. Let's do it this way. Greg Hanley. We're going to play some Greg Hanley from Verizon. He spoke at the last village board meeting, and we're going to listen to a little bit of what he had to say. It's very interesting. Maybe I should play it on YouTube, and that way I can maybe find some keywords. Okay. Just bear with me, stand by, and I'm going to call up. The title's wrong. I just have to fix that. This is... There we go. And let's try to share it. Copy, link to video. Delete this one. I know what I have to do. I have to do Open Graph Debugger. Sharing debugger, because it already cached something bad. Maybe it didn't cache anything. There it is. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, so I just I just shared out the video on Facebook. Let's share this page. All right, share to. Okay, friends, I just did a live stream, and in this live stream, I played a phone call that I made to Cheryl Chapman, and it was basically maybe I should do that again, just because I had a misfire. I wanted to make this kind of a complete presentation. If I can find it. Okay, I'm going to play that again. I am calling. Gotta make sure I got the, let's set this up right. Oops. All right, this is my call to Cheryl Chapman earlier today.
Your call is being forwarded to a ShoreTel voicemail system.
This is Cheryl Chapman, Village of Endicott Deputy Mayor. I'm unavailable at this time. Please leave a message and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you.
Is not available. Please leave a message at the tone. When finished, you may hang up or press pound for additional options.
Cheryl, this is Bill Huston calling. My number is 607-296-0671. I'm very concerned. This is not personal, okay? I know you worked on this thing, and this is what I heard. On this 5G Verizon Master License Agreement, this is very, 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 very bad. So the first bad thing is that it exposes the village to civil liability because Verizon's insurance doesn't cover their human health impacts caused by the radiation coming out of their small cell antennas. It's in places where this has been done, New York City, people are taking measurements and they're saying that Verizon is playing games with how they're taking the power measurements. It's way, way higher than what they're saying. Orders of magnitude. What I heard was millions of times higher than acceptable standards because it's done in these very short burst pulses. They're little electromagnetic bullets that they're bombarding us with. There's another technology. If we're talking about in the home, I mean, it has nothing to do with cell phone service. It's all about broadband wireless, something that there is no need for. We have hardwire broadband going into the homes. That was the plan, and that's a good plan. It's called fiber optic. We don't need this. This exposes there's known human health impacts from this ultra millimeter wave 30 to 50 gigahertz microwave radiation, neurological problems. It might be cancer causing. There's harm to birds and insects, pollinators. We can't hurt the pollinators because it's going to be game over for the planet. There's no regulatory agency. They're all taking a pass. FCC is taking a pass. They're rolling out the red carpet. The DEC doesn't regulate it. They got no authority under the statutes. The Public Service Commission is rolling out the red carpet. The DOH has no records about human health impacts. Cheryl, please get this thing off the table. We need a strong local law generally protecting us, protecting our rights to reject poll agreements for any damn reason we like. The guy from Verizon didn't really tell us the truth, let's say, okay, about preemption under the 96 Telecom Act. The opposite was true from what he said. The 96 Telecom Act preserves the rights of municipalities for our zoning and also our right to protect human health and public safety, which is police powers. It's all zoning, really. So please, Cheryl, we got to get this thing off the table. This is very, 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 very bad. It's just as bad as the incinerator was. This is just as bad as that. This is not, I know you worked on this. Don't take it personally. We have to revise. We have to get a strong local law, and we also need an environmental impact statement on the MLA. This is one of the last things you're going to do. Do you want to be known for bringing 5G to Endicott? Is that what you want your legacy to be? Or do you want your legacy to be that, you're going to do something to protect the village from an industrial assault? Please, Cheryl, take this off the table. Thank you. I'm having gremlins, friends. Okay, one listener. I don't know if that's me or not. Friends, we have to get on this 5G thing. I apologize for the gremlins. I don't know if I'm going to be able to put together something from these little glitches that I've been having here, but you got to get on the phone and call the Village of Endicott. That's what we were going to do. That's what we're going to do. We're going to play Greg Hanley. I just got to find that window. Okay, here's Greg Hanley. Now I just got to set it up over here. Okay. Here. Okay, so capture. Okay. It's tiny. Okay, we can probably turn off that one. Live TV, friends. This is the worst, is the dead air while the overloaded producer guy tries to find what he needs. In OBS. The subject is 5G. Is that still upside down? What is the problem with that? Okay, why don't I get rid of me? Okay, coming back to you. Here we go. So let's listen to some Greg Hanley here. And what I need to do is I need to call up the transcript. Let's just listen to some of his stuff.
And was it shop local, eat local? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Shop local, eat local. So
for letting me speak. Anthony and Cheryl and I have met several times over the course of the last year. I've also worked with the village attorney to come up with an MLA that will allow for the deployment of small cells in a public right of way. So what I want to do is just kind of go over with all of you folks, you know, what small cells are, and basically what an MLA actually consists of and what it does for the village, and a wireless company, whether it's Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile. So and if you guys do have questions, feel free to interrupt me at any time. It makes me, I think it spurs better communications. And this document is, I think Cheryl and Anthony have seen it several times. It's a good document to breeze through, but I will say I'm not going to go through it slide by slide like a college professor. There are some good slides to look at for visual aspects. So small cells, basically, you know, you guys have probably seen, you know, the macro cell sites, the rooftop cell sites that most wireless providers have been using for the last 20 years. Small cells are a tool and a toolbox that we have as well. And their name is indicative of what they are. They are a lot smaller version of the cell sites that we're used to building that we call the macro sites. Those macro sites are the sites that you see on towers.
What he just, I'm going to interrupt him a couple times throughout this thing. What he just said was, what the name is indicative of what they are. No. You know, they try to make a small sound. They try to make it sound diminutive, like, you know, let's call it 5G ETA. 5G ETA, diminutive, right? It's this little thing. It's low power. It's not low power. It's extremely high power, and it's not. Anyway, let's just return.
With 12 antennas at the top and a 30-foot by 15-foot building at the bottom, and they usually cover, you know, a large amount of territory. Small cells are a lot smaller. We put them in areas that we call hotspots where there's a lot of usage, usually in suburban, urban, and residential type areas is where the majority of the small cells are deployed in a wireless network. And what the
So basically, he's trying to make it seem like he's a straight shooter. That was the point that I wanted to make about that. Was he says, it's indicative of what it is. What you see is what you get. It's like, the thing that we name it is what it is. So it's not. It's a propaganda term. Okay, small cell is a propaganda term because these things are part of this global scale, massive scale rollout of this brand new technology. Okay, so it's anything but small. It's part of a gigantic, brand new thing, and it's being rolled in here during a pandemic, allegedly.
they do is they allow for the system to perform a lot better. Imagine those macro cell sites are covering such a large distance, and there's only a finite amount of users that can use those macro sites before the system starts to get bottlenecked. So these small cells relieve that bottleneck in the capacity on the system. What I can say is, Anthony, if you go down to, I believe it's slide 8 or 9, there should be a picture. I'll let you keep going. That one right there. Perfect. What this shows is the deployments that Verizon is focusing primarily on, which is deploying this small cell technology in the public right of way using telephone poles, street poles, traffic signal poles, signboards, things of that nature. We also do them on rooftops. But in the last several years, we've moved pretty much exclusively into the public right of way. So what you'll see is that picture on the left is a typical small cell install for a 4G small cell. You can see there's a canister at the top of that pole located just above the wire. That's actually the antenna. And then it's connected via coaxial cable down to that tannish box. It's about 8 feet off the ground. And that's where all the radio equipment is in a small cell. So that small box is the same as a 30-foot by 12-foot building that we put at the base of a macro cell site. So all the equipment is shrunk considerably, and it fits into a very small enclosure. And then what we like to show is obviously the picture of the right, comparing what a small cell looks like in the public right of way compared to what you typically see on a lot of your transmission poles across northeastern United States. The antennas are smaller than a transformer. Our equipment boxes are similar to the boxes that you see from cable and telephone companies on the pole. And it's actually the place that we found out over the last several years that a lot of municipalities want us to be anyway. I remember as an engineer 10 years ago in my career, being at a zoning meeting, and the municipality asked us why we couldn't go on the telephone poles and do something like this here. And back then we didn't have the technology to do it, but we do have that technology here today. So small cells, again, they're small. They offer the same capacity as the macro cells. We build them in areas where there's a lot of usage. Usually, like I said, in your suburban, your urban areas, your downtown areas, and residential areas. One thing I can say is, the past 9 months, we've seen some significant shifts in utilization at Verizon, and I'm pretty sure our competitors have seen the same thing. With more and more people working at home, we've seen a huge uptick in usage with wireless service inside residential communities. And our engineers are focusing on those areas for small cell.
Do you hear what he's saying? It's just interesting the connections between 5G and the pandemic, okay? So he's justifying people are home, they're ordered to stay home. Now people are opening up their laptops and things, and they're putting loads on, I guess, existing. I don't think he's even really saying that. We need to see the load patterns. We need to see if this is actually justified or not, or why does it need to be broadband wireless? Why can't it be fiber optic into the home? Because fiber optics doesn't produce these human health hazards. They're very different ones. I mean, if you look at a laser light, you can burn your retina. That's a hazard of fiber optic. But the consumer generally shouldn't ever be exposed to those risks. That's just for people that are, working in, the technicians that are working in the industry. Oh, that's much better. Now I can hear myself. So it's not the same risks at all. Fiber optic is a lot safer, and it's more secure too. I mean, we have no idea. This is such a new thing. We have no idea, if it's secure or not. So I'm going to play some more of this guy. This is Greg Hanley. Greg Hanley from Verizon.
Deployment. What I can tell you right now is, I think one of the questions that Anthony said might come up is, do we have any planned deployments right now for small cells in the village? And the answer is no, not at this time, but I can see this coming in the not too distant future.
Well, that's pretty vague. I mean, why don't you come when you're ready? You're not ready yet? You just want to, basically with this master license agreement, basically get the village to sign up all their rights, and then you just move in and do whatever the hell you want. We've got nothing to look at. We can't even give the planning board some kind of site plan to review or any kind of if you're going to do a master license agreement, why don't you do like a master design plan for, give us what this thing's going to look like in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Give us something in paper, something in writing here. It just seems like this thing is happening super fast, and there's not a lot of details about what they're trying to do here, and what details we do know are cause for great concern.
Our engineers evaluate the usage on the network on a quarterly basis.
So, they can justify, upgraded cell phone service based on dropped calls.
And when they...
As far as I know, there's no legal basis to, prove to us that there are, that we are not able to meet existing household demand based on, let's look at some real statistics. Let's look at the broadband providers here. How many, what do we got? Spectrum. We probably have Verizon with DSL. And we have Plexicom, the wireless one. Okay, are those the main players? Are there any more? Maybe there's others, but I think those are the Spectrum on the cable, Verizon on DSL, and Plexicom on the wireless. Those are the three. Almost everybody in the area gets their broadband wireless through one of them. It's like, well, what And once again, anyway, so show us the data that there's some kind of need for an upgrade. And of all of the different technologies, it's like, shouldn't this thing be, I think he said something like, this thing is technology agnostic. Somewhere in this presentation, he said, our plans are technology agnostic. Okay, if it's technology agnostic, then why do you have to go with the one that beams the ultra millimeter wave microwave radiation into people's homes? Why can't you go with the technology that has lower impacts? In fact, I think that's in the Telecom Act, that you have to go with the one with the least impacts.
See the usage being high for several quarters in a row, then they'll start releasing these projects for us to work on. So that's...
No, it's not. It doesn't just come from Verizon to build out this thing with no constraints whatsoever, however they want to, because that does away with the concept of zoning. The right of a municipality to the zoning powers, which are police powers, their rights are recognized and preserved by the 1996 Telecom Act. I think it's Section 706. I need to learn this. My computer crashed. I have to just get back to where I was. Get back to where you once belonged. 5G friends, you have to get on this. Yes, start. Okay, I'm going to try to find... Well, that's coming up. Let's play some more Greg Hanley.
A brief overview. And actually, what I will say is small cell is technology agnostic, meaning that they can be used for 4G and 5G. So, Anthony, if you go to the next page, I think it's maybe...
Okay, if you're technology agnostic, I'm just going to say this again because he just said it. If he's technology agnostic, then why do you have to go with this wireless broadband into people's homes? Why can't you go with wired broadband, which is fiber optic?
Page 9 and page 10. There'll be a couple different pictures that I can see here. I'll just show you guys the differences. So these are some examples of 4G small cells. You notice there's always some sort of a cylinder antenna near the top of the pole, or in an area where NYSEG has poles. We usually do a side mount below the power space. National Grid will allow us to mount above the primaries. NYSEG will not. So when we go on a NYSEG pole, we're side mounted below. And then on the 4G ones, like I said, you have the box at the bottom. The next page, Anthony, will show some pictures of what 5G small cells look like. And they're significantly smaller than 4G small cells. So the pictures on the left and right are pictures of 5G small cells that are actually live and on the air in the city of Syracuse. And the big difference between the 4G and the 5G small cells is there's no equipment cabinet near the base of the telephone pole. Basically, it's just a power meter in a disconnect box. And then the antenna and the radios are actually combined together near the top of the pole. Or again, in a NYSEG area, we cluster them into a side mount type scenario. The pole in the middle is what we call a smart pole. Because of the amount of work that we're doing with small cells across the country, way they're silver. Obviously, we'll maintain the color format, but yes, we strive for everything to be as similar as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody have any other questions?
I just got one quick question, Greg. As far as pushback, is there any health risks whatsoever to be concerned about, or is that a moot point?
No, Pat, that's a good question, and it comes up in every single meeting that I attend. And you know what I say all the time is, and I know it kind of sounds like a canned, big business answer, but the FCC is our governing body, and they set the RF emission standards in the United States of America for all wireless providers, whether it's an AM radio station, a TV broadcasting station, or a wireless provider like Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile. And what they do is they've worked with scientists and researchers and doctors in the United States of America and across the world. And the studies of RF emissions have been going on for the past 30 years, and they will keep going on, well into the future. And they base their decisions on what these emission levels should be based on pure science. And what they came down to saying is, as long as the wireless provider's equipment conforms to the rules and regulations that the FCC puts in. There are no negative health effects from wireless transmission, including 5G as well, because I know that's a big one that people have been latching onto lately, is that 5G is worse than 4G, but the FCC has already done all the in-depth studies on that information. What we, another thing too that
Now there's a tell right there. When he coughs like that, that's called a tell when he's lying and he can't deal with what he's just choking on his own words.
That put in new poles. So we are, pretty much strictly on existing locations. And then, I'm sorry, what was the second question?
Just that the $6 million we're spending on the avenue, we might want
to, for the fiber, because on our small cells, on all these small cells, whether it's a 4G small cell, a 5G small cell, 6, 7G in the future, we're going to need a fiber connection to each of those small cells. So work with those, the Verizon, the telephone providers, when you're doing these street projects, and make sure they have a conduit and it has ample size for future needs, is what I can recommend to you guys as a municipality. I actually hooked
ask about human health impacts. So I'm very happy to hear somebody ask about that.
There are no negative health effects from wireless transmission, including 5G as well, because I know that's a big one that
is there any health risks whatsoever to be concerned about, or is that a moot point?
No, Pat, that's a good question, and it comes up in every single meeting that I attend. And what I say all the time is, and I know it kind of sounds like a canned, big business answer, but the FCC is our governing body, and they set the RF emission standards in the United States of America for all wireless providers, whether it's an AM radio station, a TV broadcasting station, or a wireless provider like Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile. And what they do is they've worked with scientists and researchers and doctors in the United States of America and across the world. And the studies of RF emissions have been going on for the past 30 years, and they will keep going on, well into the future. And they base their decisions on what these emission levels should be based on pure science. And what they came down to saying is, as long as the wireless provider's equipment conforms to the rules and regulations that the FCC puts in, there are no negative health effects from wireless transmission, including 5G as well, because I know that's a big one that people have been latching onto lately, is that 5G is worse than 4G. But the FCC has already done all the in-depth studies on that information. What we, another thing too that.
There it is. There's the tell. I love it. Bullshit. He's choking on his own BS. So he says there's no human health impacts. That is a damned lie. He knows he's lying. That's why he can't say it without going. There's absolutely no human health impacts. Gulp. He can't say it with a straight face because he knows it's a damned lie. this guy's an industry, just spokesperson. He's got a particular agenda, but he's not like a journalist. He's not like anybody that's independent. He's coming here to push this thing through during a pandemic. And what he said was BS in several ways. Okay. And then, they aren't. Do you see how the regulatory scheme here is designed for citizens to fail? Because he's saying, as long as it's within the FCC standards. We don't know if it's going to be, without seeing what the implementation looks like, without seeing the plans for a particular poll license or something. We got no idea what their plan is. They haven't shared their plans with us. They have, in terms of, power output or frequency, anything like that. We haven't seen any specifications, and it sure hasn't gone to the local planning board. And it should. So what he's saying, he's just saying anything he wants to, because he's not, he can't back that up, that there's no human health impacts. So one thing is, the FCC is working on very obsolete test data. I'm just learning this myself, okay? So I can't rattle off all these dates and get it all right now. I will. I'm working on it. I'm learning this stuff, okay? But I think it could be going back to the 96 Telecom Act in terms of FCC's current scientific data that they're maintaining on this stuff. A lot has changed since 1996. That was a long time ago. Okay, there was nothing like 5G, on anybody's mind in 1996 when the Telecom Act was passed. So I think that there are some independent studies coming out, but it's like the FCC doesn't recognize that. It doesn't give voice to that in their regulations that they're promulgating. So, all right, let's go back to this.
The FCC did was they released an order. I want to say it was in about a year ago, specifically to address some of the concerns that people were having with RF emissions. And they came out flatly and said that no, even 5G is safe. We've done the studies. The frequencies have been there for the past 40 years. They've just been reallocated to the wireless providers. In Verizon, and I'm sure my competitors as well, we all have very in-depth studies on that information. What we, another thing too that the FCC did was they released an order. I want to say it was in about a year ago, specifically to address some of the concerns that people were having with RF emissions.
Okay, that wasn't what it was at all. So it's called the Third Report and Order, and it was released. It says it was released August 2019, but I thought that this might not be the right order. Hold on a second. It's cable operator. No, that isn't right. Let's go back. It was 2018. Okay. It's called the Declaratory Ruling and Third Report and Order, released September 27, 2018. But he said in there it was like January 2019. I don't know why the date's different, but like maybe it wasn't adopted by Congress or something until after January. But here it is. Declaratory ruling, and then introduction, okay? Let me see if I can just read a little bit of this introduction and capture the spirit of it, okay? Shot clocks. This is when they came up with shot clocks, the FCC. It's like, we're going to shove this in and you're going to have no time and you can't object. You see, you can't say no. We're going to tell you and then we're going to count to 5 and then you're going to get it. That's basically what they're saying. It's very intimidating on local municipalities. They're like, hey, we can't say no. No, you can't say no based on human health impacts. And for some reason, the Second Circuit agreed with that. And it said human health impacts were basically equivalent to environmental impacts. And the 96 Telecom Act preempts you from rejecting a poll license, God knows why, against environmental impacts. Supposedly that's preempted. But as was stated by Odette Wilkins on my show, go watch that. It's on, my YouTube channel. Go watch it. Odette Wilkins. She says, because Verizon says that all of our ability to challenge these things has been preempted by the 96 Telecom Act. And they try to get us to agree to that fact in the contract, the master license agreement. That's false. That's not what it's all about. It's exactly opposite. The 96 Telecom Act has two major, I should look this up. Okay, finish. My computer crashed. Did I say my computer crashed? So, it's just getting old. I'm getting old. I don't know how long this computer is going to last. So, I'm trying to call up. Okay, let me check the chat while that's loading. I don't see anybody chatting. I see one like. Good. Let's have another like. Smash like. Smash the like button. I got to figure out what other people do during dead air. And this is just computer slow down. I need to figure out how to make my shows snappy. Snappy, snappy, snappy. The snappy videos get the plays. I know these long drawn out ones don't. Call the Village of Endicott. Call everybody. Call 4 trustees plus the mayor. Call Anthony Bates. Call the village attorney, Bob McCurtich. April 2019, Small Entity Compliance Guide, accelerating wireless broadband deployment. Maybe we'll look, I'll show you this really quick. Yuck. Okay. Small Entity Compliance Guide, friends. This is the FCC. Let me make it big so I can follow along. Small Entity Compliance Guide, accelerating wireless broadband deployment by removing barriers to infrastructure investment. April 11th, 2019. This is some kind of an FCC official guidance document. This guide is prepared in accordance with the requirements of Section 212 of the Small Business Regulatory Enforcement Fairness Act of 1996. I don't know what that is. It's somehow related to the Telecom Act, I guess. Maybe it was part of it. To help small entities, small businesses, small organizations, nonprofits, and small governmental jurisdictions comply with the revised rules adopted by the above referenced Federal Communication Commission rulemaking dockets. So that's WT docket 1779 and WT 1784. This guide is not intended to replace or supersede these rules, but to facilitate compliance with the rules. Although we have attempted to cover all parts, this guide is not intended to replace or supersede these rules, but to facilitate compliance with the rules. Although we have attempted to cover, all the parts of the rules, the coverage may not be exhaustive. The guide cannot anticipate all situations in which the rules apply. Furthermore, the Commission retains the discretion to adopt case-by-case approaches where appropriate. That may differ from this guide. Any decision regarding a particular small entity will be based on the statute and the relevant rules. They want to accelerate. What's the objectives of the proceeding? In the declaratory ruling in third report and order 18133, this was the one I just read from 2018, late 2018. The Commission continued its efforts to streamline the regulatory framework for the deployment of small wireless facilities and 5G service. The rules adopted in the third report and order will accelerate the deployment of wireless infrastructure needed for mobile wireless services of the future. BS. That's BS. It's not for mobile. It's mainly for, it's partly for mobile, but it's really for broadband data to the home. Why are they putting this in residential areas? Why do people need more than 4G? Show us that the 4G system is being overloaded. I haven't seen that data. Maybe it's out there. Maybe somebody has it. I haven't seen it. So the rules adopted in the third report and order will accelerate the deployment of wireless infrastructure needed for mobile wireless services in the future while preserving the fundamental role of localities in the process. Compliance requirements. You must comply. It says you have to be the timely action required by citing authority. These are the so-called shot clock. Is presumed not to have acted within a reasonable length of time. If you drag your feet, if the village exceeds a time, if they don't answer, but thank God some of the courts have been unrolling some of this stuff, meaning that there was one decision, I think it might have been in the City of Rye case, because it was a case about doing an environmental impact statement, and the judge found that delays because you're doing the environmental review were not superseded by or preempted by the Telecom Act, not by federal law. Okay, here's all the shot clocks, batched applications, tolling period, shot clock date. Okay, so that's just one of the FCC rules. But the thing I wanted you to hear was to this guy saying that there were no health impacts.
Next year to redo Washington Avenue. So we have to make sure this coincides and fits with all of that money that we're going to spend.
Right. So the question about, is there a reassurance that we won't be on Washington? There is no reassurance about that. Yes, we're going to try to use the existing poles, and I don't see why we couldn't, but I'm not an RF engineer anymore.
Did you hear what he just said? You want reassurance that you're going to be able to control where we go, and we're not going to give it to you. That's how bold these guys are.
So I can't say with 100% certainty. Also, in the FCC order, they do state that a municipality cannot flat out deny a wireless provider to put in a pole if they can justify the need for the location. So that's one part of it. But again, I'm not.
That is absolutely. What's George doing? Is he waving his hands? I think Because that is absolutely not true.
There is no reassurance about that. Yes, we're going to try to use the existing poles, and I don't see why we couldn't, but I'm not an RF engineer anymore, so I can't say with 100% certainty. Also, in the FCC order, they do state that a municipality cannot flat out deny a wireless provider to put in a pole if they can justify the need for the location. So that's one part of it. But again, Verizon's going to work with you.
Right. I agree with George. He was like, what? That's not true. That is not true. They're trying to convince us that that's true, but it's not true. And it's not the report and order. The report and order is an advisory document. What matters is the statute, and the statute is the Telecom Act. Let me see if I can call it up really quick because I was working on this. I got it right here. So this is super important. This is super important. Okay. How do we... Okay. Come on. This is section 253 of the Telecom Act. In general, no state or local statute or regulation or other state or local legal requirement may prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting the ability of any entity to provide any interstate or intrastate telecommunications service. Here's the question. Is 5G a telecommunications service? I don't think so. I think it's Title I, which is a data service. We can't prohibit a telecom service. Okay, that means cell phone calls, voice calls. 5G is wireless broadband. That's not what this is talking about. Now listen to this part, okay? Listen very carefully to this. State regulatory authority. Nothing in this section shall affect the ability of a state to impose on a competitively neutral basis and consistent with Section 254. I don't know what 254 is. We got to read 254. Requirements necessary to preserve and advance universal service. That's fine. Protect the... This is the one. This is the one. What does that say? Bing. Bing. What? What? What is... I thought all this stuff was preempted, Greg Hanley. You said it was preempted. This isn't... This looks like the federal law is recognizing a local municipal authority's right to protect itself, protect its police powers, public safety and welfare. That's police powers, Jack. The 96 Telecom Act does not impact our local zoning authority to protect us from your, diddly-doos, whatever they are, your little gizmos. So we can't prohibit the ability of an entity to provide any interstate or intrastate telecom service. We don't have any intention of messing with telecom. Our intention is to regulate 5G. And if you want to talk about broadband data, you have choices. This is not the only technology. We want to do an environmental impact statement. Part of doing an environmental impact statement, as you may or may not know, is the examination of alternatives to the proposal. That's part of the environmental review. Let's look at the alternatives. The alternatives to wireless broadband 5G with this ultra high frequency, super space age Jetson, blasting you with these little pulses of like little needles. They're super short and they're super high power. Just going at you. It can't be good, and there's science that says it isn't good, okay? So Section 253, there's two parts to this, okay? And I'm very, 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 very grateful to Odette Wilkins for talking to us on the Bill Huston podcast, and she really increased my understanding of this. There's two things. This is one of them. Section 253 of the Telecom Act recognizes the ability of a local municipal government to protect the public safety and welfare. Jack. Did you get that, Greg Hanley? Now let's look at the next one. The next one is zoning. Okay? So this is a little bit tedious. A little bit tedious. Because there's a lot to it. But you have to know this, friends. We all have to know it. It's going to be good for me to review it and you to review it. Somebody has to do this work. Nobody. Oh, let's just sit back and wait for the Sierra Club to take care of this. I got to be careful because I have friends in the local Sierra Club that I respect and they're donors, okay? But where is the Sierra Club as an organization jumping on this? Where's the Broome County Environmental Management Council? Are they going to look at this? I put in a suggestion that they do. And the head of it, this guy, says, well, it's probably not going to be a priority this year, but we will talk about it at a meeting. So my question is, what is the Broome County Environmental Management Council, and who is this guy that's running it, and does he get to set the agenda? Oh, we're going to do riverbank cleanups. Okay, so we can only take on this many issues at a time, right? We can't, okay, just because this is like the biggest threat to human health and safety that's, come down the pike in my lifetime. I think it's bigger than bomb trucks. It's bigger than leachate dumping. This is the biggest, this bigger than fracking. And it's bigger than toxic hazardous waste incinerators. This is huge. The potential for human health problems, okay? General authority, except as provided in this paragraph, nothing in this act shall limit or affect the authority of a state or local government or instrumentality thereof over decisions regarding the placement, construction, or modification of wireless service facilities. Should I mark that? Let's try to mark that. Okay, here it is. The general authority, except as provided in this paragraph, nothing in this act shall limit or affect the authority of a state or local government or instrumentality thereof over decisions regarding the placement, construction, or modification of personal wireless service facilities. Personal wireless service facilities. Nothing in this act shall limit or affect the authority of a state or local government or instrumentality thereof over decisions regarding the placement, construction, or modification. This is asserting the local municipality's right to do local zoning. Okay, they're saying that we are not impacting your local zoning. That's just really what that other section was saying too. The other section was calling it the right of the community to protect the health and safety and welfare. Health, safety, and welfare. We talked about this on a show long ago. Which one was it? I forget which one now, but where I did the diagram of where we start at the New York State Constitution and how we break it down to the town law, the village law, ECL. From the town law and the village law, you get the general police powers, which is like what you use to hire the police for. But then there's also zoning. And if you read the enabling statute for either of those, they talk about health, safety, and welfare. Police powers is zoning. It's the same thing. And if you read the environmental law, the ECL, read the enabling statute, what does it say? Talking about health, safety, and welfare. Oh, so environmental law is police powers too. So we have the police, and then we have zoning, and then we have environmental protection. All of that is police powers, okay? So this is saying nothing in this act shall limit or affect the authority of a state or local government or instrumentality thereof over decisions regarding the placement, construction, or modification of personal wireless services. This is saying you, the municipality, you, the village of Endicott, have this right over decisions regarding the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service facilities. But we have to assert this jurisdiction through a local law where we say we understand what our rights are and this is how we're going to regulate these things. We don't have that now. We are completely unprepared to sign or to approve or vote on this Verizon Master License Agreement. Okay, this is important to learn. Limitations. The regulation of the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless services by any state or local government or instrumentality thereof shall not unreasonably discriminate among providers of functionally equivalent services. Okay, so this is like you got to treat Verizon and T-Mobile the same way. Functionally equivalent services. And they shall not prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting the provision of personal wireless services. Once again, provision of personal wireless service. We already have the provision for personal wireless service. We have 4G. And you have to look at what personal wireless services mean, right? It's like if you got a laptop and it's Wi-Fi is not the same thing as 5G, okay? So if you want maybe personal wireless services means Wi-Fi. Which means the way you get Wi-Fi in your house is with fiber into the house. So this is really complicated. This needs to be, looked at by attorneys. We don't want to prohibit the provision of personal wireless services. Now, once again, let's see if we can find a definition of this. Personal wireless services. Okay, so let's see if we can find it. FCC. Personal. Is that defined? What is a personal wireless service that's mentioned in the Telecom Act? Oh, that's why. That's just an incomplete thing. Okay, let me do. All right, here is the 96 Telecom Act. Here we go. All right, let me put this on the screen so you can see it. This is the 1996 Telecom Act, and it says, for the purposes of this paragraph, the term personal wireless services means commercial mobile services, unlicensed wireless services, and common carrier wireless exchange services. Common carrier, I don't know if this needs an attorney to figure out, because common carrier normally refers to phone service. And I think with the way, didn't they just reclassify mobile data as an information service? So it's not common carrier, and that gets them away from net neutrality. They can regulate different tiers, and they don't have to regulate it in a non-discriminatory way according to the type of data or where it's coming from. They can mess with it now. They can play games with throttling certain kinds of services and things because of the reclassification. So the question, does the term personal wireless service apply to cell phones or to broadband? The term personal wireless service facilities means the provision of. Unlicensed means. Okay. So let me bring this back over here so I can see a little bit better. I just want to see if we can say personal wireless services. Does this mean let me say wireless broadband. FCC classifies wireless broadband as an information service. You think I'm lying? Your choice. And accepting cookies. Do you want cookies? Everybody likes cookies. There it is. It's an information service. At least that was done in 2007. Oh, this is an old decision. So I'm not sure if that's really changed. What was the thing I was looking for? Personal wireless service. Wireless broadband service providers will continue to receive benefit of Section 332's prohibition of unreasonable zoning restrictions on the deployment of wireless infrastructure where the services are commingled with personal wireless services. Wireless broadband service providers will continue to receive the benefit of Section 332's prohibition, according to who? FCC's declaratory ruling. Okay, so the FCC decided that 5G was considered a personal wireless service under the meaning of Section 332 of the Telecom Act, which means that a local municipality cannot... See, I have to study this stuff so often so I can rattle it off the top of my head. And I just haven't done that yet. I struggle with the language of this. It's pretty technical. But we read it to you before that what was that? 332. Before I read you 332, let's read you 253 again. 253, removal of barriers to entry. No state or local statute or regulation or other state or local legal requirement may prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting the ability of an entity to provide any interstate or intrastate telecommunications service. And they're calling that a personal wireless service. Friends, I'm going to try to wrap this up because I feel like I'm, repeating myself. But this is the guy, Greg Hanley. He told some whoppers, right? He said there were no health impacts as long as the FCC, and then he choked.
Prove it or deny it, and there's a very limited amount of things that you can deny it for. Verizon's not, I've told this story a couple times. Back in the day, you wouldn't hear from a wireless provider until they were ready to go to zoning to build a site, because it was always like a lot of anxiety, and Verizon's kind of gone outside of that for the last 2.5 years that I've been on this team, and we're working with municipalities to put these agreements in place. So when we do want to deploy, it's not a big surprise, and we get everything out in the open, and we agree on the terms, we agree on the fees, and we agree on a process on how to get these sites through in the time frame that the FCC has allotted for the municipalities to make those decisions. So in that MLA.
And again, that's BS, because what I'm reading is we agree to these shot clocks, which is not, it's like it's forced upon us. These time constraints. We're not freely choosing this. We are being preempted, allegedly. But there's questions about whether that preemption applies to wireless broadband. Okay?
All the language is in there about, the timelines, which the FCC has called out in their order. The recurring fees, the fees that the village can charge a wireless provider for using your right of way, those fees are in the MLA. The fees that you can charge a wireless provider for applications for the permits to let us work in a public right of way, those are in that MLA. There's things in there about interference rights for the village and the wireless providers. There's things in there about, if there was a need for us to move because the village was going to widen a road, how much notifications there needs to be, things like that. So the agreement is really, it's a good thing to have for a municipality and for a wireless provider. It covers all of the fees, the rights, and how the whole deployment program would work throughout the term of that agreement. One thing a lot of people have asked, a lot of municipalities have asked me over the last 2 years I've been working on these things is, is this agreement just for Verizon Wireless? And the answer is yes, it's just for Verizon Wireless, but then you have a template. So if AT&T came in 6 months.
Oh, thank you for giving us the template. Boy, that's a great deal, huh? They're going to give us a template
down the road and said they wanted to put in a small cell and they needed to work out an agreement with you. You could say, well, here's, Verizon already did one. Here's the template, change the name.
This is beneficial to Verizon. It's written by Verizon's attorneys. It's not for our best interests.
From Verizon to AT&T and look like,
recurring.
Correct. Yep, absolutely. So yeah, if we were to put in a poll like the one
next year to redo Washington Avenue.
Conversation. I think most of the times you guys are already working with those folks anyway, because they're really, pretty much the public utilities that you generally work with.
So then I have one more question, and then I'm done.
Back. Is there any health risks whatsoever to be concerned about, or is that a moot point?
No, Pat, that's a good question, and it comes up in every single meeting that I attend. And what I say all the time is, and I know it kind of sounds like a canned, big business answer, but the FCC is our governing body, and they set the RF emission standards in the United States of America for all wireless providers, whether it's an AM radio station, a TV broadcasting station, or a wireless provider like Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile. And what they do is they've worked with scientists and researchers and doctors in the United States of America and across the world. And the studies of RF emissions have been going on for the past 30 years, and they will keep going on, well into the future. And they base their decisions on what these emission levels should be based on pure science. And what they came down to saying is, as long as the wireless provider's equipment conforms to the rules and regulations that the FCC puts in, there are no negative health effects from wireless transmission, including 5G as well, because I know that's a big one that people have been latching onto lately, is that 5G is worse than 4G. But the FCC has already done all the in-depth studies on that information. What we, another thing.
What we. That's a tell, friends. When you can't say what you're trying to say without choking on your own voice, that means this guy knows that he's being less than truthful. Friends, we have to get engaged quickly on this. It's Thursday at 9:30. We've got all day Friday. We have to blitz the phone lines of the Village of Endicott. Call 4 trustees. Let's put their names up. What the? These are the names you got to call, friends. Mayor Linda Jackson, 607-757-2420. No 5G. We got to take that thing off the table. Master license agreement. Get it off the table. Cheryl Chapman, 607-757-5367. Get it off the table. 5G. Master license agreement. It's no damn good. It does not protect us. It's really a giveaway to industry. Come on. Eileen Konechny, 607-748-2272. Come on, Eileen. Ted Warner, 607-772-2503. I don't care how these people voted on other issues. I don't care. This is a different thing. It's potentially just got a different dynamic to it. Don't limit yourself. Assume that each one of these people are human beings, and they will listen. They will listen to what you have to say, okay? Cheryl Chapman is leaving office. This is one of the last things she's going to do. Her name's going to be stuck on this. So something with potential for serious human health impacts. You want this on your legacy, Cheryl. Is that right? Or do you want to leave it on your legacy that you exited by giving the people a gift of the Village of Endicott? And that is, we're going to hold off on this 5G thing, this master license agreement, until we ask for an environmental impact statement from Verizon. They need to prepare an EIS, because we're going to require it via the seeker process that we have to do before you pass the local law. You are putting direct liability on the village. We can be sued over this, okay? No 5G in Endicott. Pat Dorner, 607-754-4236. We got it. There's human health impacts, privacy impacts, and the impacts, you don't even have to consider those impacts to just look at the legal problems with how thing is being pushed through. That's it, friends. I'm out of here. Please subscribe on YouTube. Click the bell. Share this video with the trustees and the mayor. Call Anthony Bates. Call Bob McCurtich. Take this thing off the table. It's bad. It's bad. You are giving up your duties to protect the village and to protect our rights. Over and out. Talk to you later.